Hello, people of the internet. Ian, also the Freedom Astrologer here, once again, sitting here with Donny Lim from Outcome of Light. And this time we're going to do another one of our monthly electrified. You can see Donny is already electrified fully. Videos of the monthly overview, what's coming in September 2022. And we have a bunch of stuff to you to bring. But first and foremost, let's recap the previous month a little bit. Let's recap August 2022. Donny, how are you doing?
Oh, August has been kind of eventful in a lot of ways. I mean, need me to mention about the Aquarius super full moon. That's been quite a journey, but at least from my vantage point, what I can see is that I think a viewer has feedback to me regarding August 2022, saying that there's a huge flood in Pakistan that's ravaging the whole country. I named it. And am I surprised? No, because that's what the astrocartography map of the lunation charts for August 2022 actually tell me. And something actually surprising also came up in Singapore because finally we are repealing a Victorian penal code which decriminalizes two consenting males in the bedroom, their choices. So I shall leave it as that. Yeah, I know. Like, talk about first world country, right? And now only in 2022 we are repealing this. It's been for the longest time. And India, who's got a similar penal code, has repealed it like, several years before. So I would say some progress, you know what I mean? I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. Um Call me jaded or call me old, but I'm going through my midlife crisis. So and August is also, I've seen a lot of clients coming to me and having a career crisis. I think it's due to the triple conjunction of Mars, Uranus, and the North Node in the degree of Virgo at 18 degrees. And I think they're just trying to find more meaning of how to get out or wiggle out of their current circumstances in order to pave a brand new way forward, for their foreseeable future. Because it's like it's not so much like my background, like a lightning strike when Mars, Uranus, and the North Node come together, but it's also like it gives you that sudden flash of insight, like, oh my God, I think something really like crap is coming up and I need to pivot. And some of them have actually asked me um, whether running their own business or becoming a freelancer, very much Uranus kind of energy. And when it's coupled with North Node and Mars, you can't really compromise with other people. You have to call the shots. So, do you have anything more to add, Ian? I think that's what I can recall on top of my head. Yeah.
I have some, guys. I've been, that full moon hit me personally quite heavily, I would say, and I had to go pretty deep into my own consciousness, I guess, to come out of it even. Um, but I have but I have a couple of things that I want to say about let's say the last month and last video even as well, and what Donnie said about finding your own work, finding freelancing work, becoming your own boss, business type thing. I think that is a huge, let's say, huge movement, and a huge
Mm,
let's say thought crisis we're also in, because a lot of people are, let's say, they're discovering, they're understanding that maybe these types of ways of being, living, working, we work, most of us work at least 8 hours a day, some even more. That's a huge chunk of our day, so that has to have at least some point, some meaning, some deeper. You need to be doing something good with that big chunk of a time. So that I do see as a trend that will continue, that will move, it will go bigger and bigger and bigger, and people want to break free from these old systems. Definitely, it's going to continue. So one of the things I mentioned last month was Iceland, during the full moon itself, actually, because the lines went, when we're using astrocartography, we're looking at the lines. You can go check our previous month's video out as well. It's on YouTube. But I mentioned Iceland, and I was a little bit like, so what could happen in Iceland? And I was a little bit worried about the Icelandic people because remember Iceland does its own thing. They're kind of like separate. They have a pretty unique way of doing things, and I was like, so what type of crisis, maybe what type of hardship can happen there? But obviously, Iceland is a volcanic, island. So, this triple conjunction with the full moon actually triggered a volcano there again. Luckily, I must say, everybody, every person, living thing, it seems, is okay, and it's. I mean, every time a volcano erupts near to you, it's probably a little bit stressful, but luckily everything is still moving great, and people are alive, so that is good. And I also wanted to give you guys let's say a bit of a job for this podcast or for this video, because I've been living now for, I don't know, was it 5 months, 4 months in a Spanish speaking country, and you can see in my attire that it's the culture is kind of rubbing off on me, and I've been tuning into the greats. One of the greats in astrology was also a Spanish speaking person, and I'm going to do an impression for you guys, and I want you to leave us a comment below under the video of who is this astrology great, a very famous astrologer, who am I doing, and who's let's say similar attire I'm wearing. And this is a very this is a very short impression, but I'm doing it. Mucho amor. That's it. That's all I'm going to give you, and you can now decide and leave us a marker in the comments of who this famous astrologer is. And I think now,
Very obvious, by the way. Very obvious. Very obvious. Yeah.
It's a bit of a let's I think why I wanted to even do this and why I wanted to go there is like this past year, let's say, or maybe we can even say years and months and etc. etc. It's been really heavy, guys. It's been extremely heavy, and I think many or most people are feeling it. And let's do our best to get through this with a little bit of humor and a little bit of fun and games as well.
Well, Mars is already in Gemini, right? Mars is to laugh. Gemini is to like do impressions and have little like chit chats and small talk and all those stuff. Water will be squaring Neptune.
Which is why
maybe gossips to go around,
Are we going to Mercury retrograde now, or do you have anything?
Oh yeah,
else?
because it's already coming as we tape. Mercury is already in shadow, and this current one is probably one of the last Mercury retrograde that retrogrades in both air and then earth sign. This year we've been having like the first one is in Aquarius going back to Capricorn, and then middle of the year we've got like Mercury retrograde starting in Gemini going back to Taurus, and then this one will be starting in the first 10 degrees of Libra, and then going back to the tail end of Virgo. So we do have a fourth Mercury retrograde, but that one is fully in Earth, and that one will happen around Christmas period, fully in Capricorn. So now let me go back to the earth and air elements, because Mercury retrograde will be touching these two elements in a single retrograde. So they are totally or completely dissimilar in quality. So we will need to draw upon the magic Mercury actually possesses for synthesizing meaning when mediating differences because of the elemental difference. So Mercury will spend the majority of each retrograde still in the air signs, and then just retrograding into Earth subsequently. So what I'm trying to say is that the flexible and restless nature of the air element will be emphasized, because predominantly the Mercury retrograde will take place mostly in the air signs in terms of degree for each one. So it's accentuating the capacity of Mercury for bringing different perspectives together rationally. That's when the earth sign actually comes in. And and also relationally as well, when we are about to go around and gather information and discover insights into how to change stagnant thought patterns. This is what I gather when Mercury retrograde happens in both like air and earth elements. And I would say that the constructive and pragmatic nature of the earth elements included in each Mercury retrograde 3 times this year will result in each of the retrograde periods, helping to perhaps organize the airy revelations received by Mercury when the retrograde starts in the air signs into more solid forms. So it's grounding of ideas. It's not just floating into your head. You can actually do something tangible and with it and take actions upon it, perhaps. It may also help us adapt our personal boundaries to the ways in which societal structures are shifting. So I think in the background of what we talked about pertaining to August 2022 astrology is that all these 3 Mercury retrogrades that's starting in air but ends in earth actually help us to like solidify or kind of refine some plans that's been floating around in our minds since perhaps last year when Mercury retrograde was fully in air. And now when there's the elemental switch from air back to earth for part of the Mercury retrogrades for all 3 times this year, is that we will be able to look at it from a very grounded perspective. It's not just, running around asking people and that's it. It's really letting those ideas be distilled and take into consideration and then take subsequent planned out series of actions pertaining to that. So for this Mercury retrograde, Mercury actually stations retrograde on September 9th. So coming up very soon, and that will happen at 8 degrees 55 minutes of Libra. And Mercury will actually station direct on 2nd of October at 24 degrees 11 minutes of Virgo. And if we actually trace Mercury's retrograde journey from Libra to Virgo, this will excavate the underbelly of idealistic dreams, which have been festering inside all of us in some way, shape, or form, because outer circumstances are just changing so fast. And we are actually examining how to build a more solid foundation underneath the visions for creative expansion that you have been developing. So while Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Libra, it will form an opposition with Jupiter in Aries. That's already retrograde for some weeks now. And this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter retrograde will be happening on 18th of September. And this is when Jupiter and Mercury are both retrograde and in opposition to each other. This can actually lead to some kind of questioning or revisiting, because both planets are retrograde. Where have you had inflated beliefs and need some reconsideration of your perspectives and hopefully shift that? And once Mercury actually re-enters late Virgo, this will happen on September 23rd. It will form a flowing trine to Pluto, actually. And a creatively stimulating conjunction with Venus, and a tense opposition with Neptune. So very busy there when Mercury retrograde re-enters Virgo. This can actually help us to distinguish the path to follow forward that is empowering, hopefully, and will allow you to bring forth ideas into form through realistic steps and goals. So what I mentioned earlier regarding like planning stuff and taking those like actionable, executable, series of motions to make those happen. And if I were to look at the signs of Virgo and Libra, when Mercury retrograde actually swings back and forth, it actually represents like a bridge of change in the seasons from summer to fall that's applying to the northern hemisphere. For folks in Australia is the opposite. So this is like an important symbolic meaning in Mercury, not only being retrograde in these signs, but also forming its regenerative conjunction with the sun on the exact day of the Libra equinox, by the way. And this is the time of the harvest in the northern hemisphere. And similarly, Mercury will help in separating the wheat from the chaff. So there's that Virgo symbolism. Gaining clarity for what elements of developing ideas to cultivate versus what aspects need to be reformed or released. So it's about that distillation process, what Virgo does best. Mercury functions well in Libra, I must mention, but it is at its greatest strength in the sign of Virgo. And in the airy intellectual environment of Libra, Mercury excels in reflecting upon relational dynamics of all sorts, revealing places where we need to recalibrate where we have been interacting or how we have been interacting, And in comparison, in Virgo, where Mercury will eventually station direct, Mercury in Virgo has the immense facility in discerning choices and distinguishing points of focus out of many considerations that can be gathered by Mercury in Libra. Because Libra can also be like a social butterfly kind of sign. And so when it swings back to Mercury, then it starts to like, oh, what should I keep? What should I let go? Kind of thing. So we can best utilize the period of Mercury retrograde in Libra for thoughtful contemplation, inventive brainstorming as well. While the portion of Mercury retrograde in late Virgo can help us to analyze the most optimal path forward. So for key dates of this Mercury retrograde, Mercury is already in the shadow zone, and this actually occurred on August 20th when Mercury actually entered 24 degrees 11 minutes of Virgo. And then August 27th, which is the this weekend when we are taping, Mercury is at maximum elongation, which means that Mercury begins to slow down in motion. And skipping forward to September 9th, Mercury actually stations retrograde at 8 degrees 55 minutes of Libra. And moving forward to September 22nd, Mercury actually conjunct the Sun while Mercury is still in retrograde, and that will happen at 0 degrees 14 minutes of Libra. And this is also the position where Mercury is also closest to Earth, when Mercury retrogrades and kiss the Sun. And by the way, I like to use the word Mercury star point when Mercury and the Sun conjuncts. So this can be a term that you may want to utilize for simplicity's sake. And the next day, on September 23rd, Mercury re-enters Virgo straight away. And October 2nd, Mercury stations direct at 24 degrees 11 minutes of Virgo, getting ready to move forward. And October 8th, Mercury actually is at maximum elongation again. So Mercury on that day will begin to speed up in motion. And lastly, October 16 will be when Mercury actually leaves the shadow retrograde zone, very close to 9 degrees of Libra. So I think the next part we can move into are the 12 signs. But before that, I would just like to take out 3 signs which will be the most impacted by this Mercury retrograde starting in Libra. I would say that the most intense will be for Libra because Mercury actually stations retrograde in your sign. And Libra is being known for being focused on relationships. But however, this Mercury retrograde will be a time to make sure you focus on yourself and your interior landscape. And you will make foundational changes in how you carry and present yourself in the world, gaining awareness for ways in which you have been restricting or holding yourself back. So take note of that and put your thoughtful skills in weighing multiple options to work focusing on the choices aligned with the most authentic path forward for yourself. So I would say the most challenging sign, if I were to pick one of the 12 for this Mercury retrograde beginning in Libra, will be Pisces, actually. Because you may have some uncomfortable, challenging material emerging into your awareness relating to relationships, in which you share significant financial, emotional, and creative resources. And I think the best advice here is to stay with the trouble rather than avoiding or distracting yourself with escapism. Pisces know it all too well. And by the end of the retrograde, you will have gained greater clarity regarding constructive ways to address the issues creatively and effectively. So what sign will be the most beneficial or benefited for this particular Mercury retrograde? I would say Gemini, because for Geminis, over this Mercury retrograde, you may bring your playful curiosity and thirst for new perspectives into your daily experiences. And this can be a fertile time for experimenting with new forms of creativity and generating ideas. And you can lay to rest old aspirations that no longer inspire you or serve you, clearing the ground for more vital visions to take root. And you can also embrace the fluidity and formlessness of Mercury retrograde, this particular one, rather than trying to hang on to old forms in need of change. So I would say that the main date in this Mercury retrograde will be happening on September 26th of 2022, because this actually brings the Libra equinox when the sun ingresses into the sign of the scales, demarcating the beginning of the season of fall or autumn in the northern hemisphere and spring in the southern hemisphere. And it is also the day where Mercury will enter the heart of the sun. So Mercury retrograde and the sun will form this conjunction or Cazimi point, becoming reanimated in the radiant potency of our star. And for this, I call this conjunction or Cazimi point the Mercury star point in the sky. And this conjunction between Mercury retrograde and the sun actually forms the dead center of the Mercury retrograde passage. So it represents the time during which whatever material has been accumulated during the first half of the Mercury retrograde period can be burnt off and purified. And it's a moment for receiving new ideas and a perfect fit for a day in which the season also shifts into autumn in the northern hemisphere. So being the time of reaping the harvest from the land, creating the ritual space on September 26th of 2022 for the gathering of seeds of new ideas that will take root in the cycle ahead will be favorable. And just listen to or for messages revealing the ideas and plans ready to bear fruit for yourself. And I think I've talked enough for a bit. So let's go to the 12 sign predictions for this Mercury retrograde, beginning with Aries. So listen up for your ascendant.
I have a little bit of a, let's say, overview or overall things I want to say about this period as well. So, guys, bear with us before we go into the predictions. I have a little bit of that I want to say about these, because this is an interesting period as well. Like Donnie already said, we are doing 2 signs in a Mercury retrograde. Yeah. We're doing Libra.
The last one.
And we're doing Libra and Virgo. And I want to dissect them kind of like separately, because we're in the middle of this retrograde. We're going to experience a shift or a change of energy, and I think it's important. So the first part is a lot to do with obviously Libra topics, which is, you know, assessing our current relationships, partnerships, deals, all these places where we have an agreement with another party. It can be a work agreement, it can be a romantic relationship, or it can be some sort of negotiation as well. And a lot of that will be reevaluated. It will be reevaluated from their side as well. So you're not only going to be the one who's doing the reevaluating, they are doing the same thing. Now, and after that, all of that reevaluating is done, everybody, or both sides actually, in this case Libra, both sides are going to come together. And I urge you actually to talk about these things, to see other people's perspectives as well, because that's the highest form of Libra, and Mercury is about communication. So in order to let's say take these partnerships, take these relationships to a new level, higher level, better level, make these contracts or agreements better, we need to communicate, we need to talk, we need to even think about, we need to connect the dots of what is working, what is not working, what can we do better for it to work. Now, also, because it's happening in the sign of Libra, like romantic relationships are a theme here, definitely. I want to stress this fact specifically, because a lot of you are going to be thinking about old lovers, old, let's say, relationships, and sometimes a lot of those let's say love interests, relationship interests, can come back to us as well. Like even send a message, send an email, something about them can come to our awareness. Now, a lot of people say, oh, just ignore and don't talk to them, etc., etc. What's done is done. But a lot of the reasons these things come to our awareness is to reevaluate, to reassess, to see if there's something there. Again, I said romantic relationships, but it can happen in work, it can happen in career, maybe an old job, old boss, somebody comes in with a thing that you used to do, and now you get to decide, okay, so am I done with this? Am I moving on? Or am I taking this and making it better somehow with these people? So it's not always, these people aren't always bad. People can grow, people can evolve. And that retrograde period for us is to actually understand, both sides, is to understand if it's working and can we make something of it. Really important, guys, if you get those messages. And the shadow period, I want to mention, we're right now recording this already in shadow. Usually in the shadow it does get, we're starting to build towards the inferior conjunction now with Mercury and the Sun. In my mind, or in my experience and observation, very often where it comes to the actual retrograde period, when however close it comes, the speedier things come for a moment, and then the closer we get to the inferior conjunction, we're already in retrograde, things start slowing down. We go deeper. We start to, let's say, go more internally, behind the scenes, even inside of ourselves, to figure things out again. And we're going to talk about, obviously, in the predictions, who is doing more what. And I want to mention one thing also about this Libra portion of the retrograde. It's like Donnie said already, it's about, like, Mercury does well in Libra, but one of the things I want to really stress is it's sometimes the intellectual mind workings go so much back and forth, weighing the option. It can almost seem like you're not able to make the decision. So remember that when you're going, oh, should I do this? Oh no, I should do this. It's almost like it should happen. You should see that side of the coin and that side of the coin. But in the end, you need to make a decision as well. So remember that too much of that weighing can be, a stopping point for some things as well. Indecision, I wrote here, weighing our options too much, and even having multiple deals, multiple options, multiple proposals coming to our awareness. Maybe it's a new business, or maybe it's an old partner comes back and the new partner is already here, and now you have to make a decision. Do I do this? Do I do that? That is going to be on the table. Now, the second part is in this earthly Virgo sign, like Donnie already said, and we will be during this time. It's already, we're retrograde, so things have been slowing down, but Mercury does extremely well in Virgo. And for me, it's a lot about going deep into the details, going behind the scenes, fixing these matters, making things really better. Remember this, guys, Virgo is a lot about making things better. You are going to see it in your work, daily routines, health, exercise routine, any imbalance in your life, workplace even. Arguments, court cases, debts. I wrote here. You know, one of the things that can happen is like refinancing your debt or making it or restructuring even your debt. How you're going to pay that is not so heavy on the load or on your wallet, for example. And we're going to be making these things better now that, let's say, I mentioned the more, let's say, negative side of Libra. I'll mention a more negative side of Virgo as well that we need to like be aware of more. It's about making things better, looking at things very specifically, but not just criticizing and being critical towards others. Because if we see the mistakes, if we maybe somebody else made a mistake, maybe even ourselves we made a mistake. It's not about criticizing that mistake or even ourselves and being hard on ourselves. It's more about, okay, so here is the thing that we need fixing. What is the best way we can make it better? So don't moan about it, make it better. You know, fix it basically. don't go too much into that criticism. And a couple of important themes overall for Mercury retrograde to keep in mind. Potential changes of trends in financial markets or rapid events with stocks and crypto. Very often it does happen even exactly on the day or 2 days, 3 days, you know, very close to the retrograde. Very big events usually on the markets. Problems, issues with technology. Me and Tony, even when we're starting to record this video, we had a bunch of our things already. But if old devices are acting up, breaking, you most likely need to buy a new one. But I urge you to if you can, do research during the retrograde and then after buy, let's say, a new item, because you will get a better one. You will get a better deal, you will get better quality, you get the right one. Administrative tasks. You need to be aware that these can take longer. You have to do them repetitively. It is annoying. There are errors, rescheduling of meetings. I see this constantly during Mercury retrograde. Somebody needs to do this, somebody can't make it on time. You need to, and sometimes you need to make that meeting happen like 3 times, and it just gets frustrating. So if you're, let's say, like an assistant or a person who does a lot of administrative tasks, it's going to be, you know, luckily it's in Virgo and Libra, so Mercury is stronger, but still the repeating can come. So one thing we started seeing a lot in Estonia, actually, were what is the word I'm looking for? Hackers, Russian hackers hacked the Estonian websites and government. That's a big thing. But it can happen during Mercury retrograde a lot, that websites are down, servers are down, something of these computer systems in general are not working to their full capacity, or there's a problem with these systems. Guys, remember that as well. I think it's important. You know, maybe you need to do like a transfer of money, or maybe you need to do something quickly and the system is down. That's very often just a very simple one. All projects returning to you to be evaluated and worked on, definitely. Be really careful with this next one. Messages sent to wrong people, including work emails. Very often I see this. It's almost like you know, you CC in a person who shouldn't be seeing the email, and it creates a lot of problems. Sometimes spelling mistakes, go over them more than once. Driving multiple times to the same destination to fix something, that happens to me unfortunately all the time, because I have Saturn in the 3rd house anyway, so that is annoying. But Mercury retrograde does it even more. Going through the last one, going through contracts, documents multiple times, fixing mistakes, or negotiating a deal. You know, when you're negotiating a deal, one person comes back, etc. There's a lot of back and forth, and especially when we're talking about Libra. Oh yeah. You know, a lot of back and forths, I would say. So be patient and do your best to understand that the other person maybe sees things differently. Let's put it that way. I think now we can go into the predictions if you don't have anything else.
Oh yeah, so I think the key date right in the center of this Mercury retrograde on September 22nd. So when the Sun actually conjuncts Mercury retrograde at 0 degrees 14 minutes of Libra, that will be one of those important days because 0 degrees of the cardinal signs is actually on the world axis. So look out for any like divine inspiration or ideas that may come to you because that's how mysterious Mercury retrogrades can manifest for us. And you may have this kind of aha moment on that day. So if you are one who actually prays to Mercury, maybe it's not bad to have some kind of ritual pertaining to that on 22nd of September this year. So let us start with Aries, and we will be predominantly using the ascendant sign for prediction because this ties back to the houses and the areas of life it will impact. So for Aries rising, and to a lesser extent, Sun and Moon, this Mercury retrograde will be happening first and foremost in your 7th house, and it will retrograde back into your 6th house. So take it away, Ian, for Aries.
Yeah, guys, for Aries, a lot of what we already talked about, the relationships and routines and work is going to apply to you, especially first part, fixing things with relationships, deals, contracts, possibility for contract negotiations, old lovers relationships returning, and taking, it is a possibility to take these partnerships and things to a new level, but it is a time where the potential for these to end is there as well. Now, the second part of the retrograde will be a lot focused on work, fixing some problem matter there. Maybe a project needs to be fixed. Maybe something needs to be reworked there. Lots to do there. Maybe even there are more, arguments at work. It can happen in the 6th house when Mercury is in the 6th house. There can be, let's say, disagreements there with even people you work with. Refinancing debt or paying back debt, and tweaking of routines and focusing on illness, sickness, health matters as well for you, Aries.
Interesting, because I put down here 6th house. For Aries rising is about scheduling, and 7th house is about partnerships and meeting people. So indirectly, what I'm trying to say is that for Aries, this retrograde is coming for both your schedule and also your partnerships. So make sure that your Google Calendar in meeting people don't get double booked. And also Aries, right? So instead of being your usual impulsive self, you may want to pause and think before making your moves over this Mercury retrograde, and unresolved relationship issues are likely to crop up over the first half of the retrograde when it's still in Libra. So approach these sensitive conversations with passion and empathy and really lend a listening ear. And after that, you may find that it's hard to find your groove time-wise because it goes back into your 6th whole sign house. So be careful not to, as I mentioned before, double book yourself and really check your calendar if you have overcommitted yourself in terms of meeting people, or even some meetings in which you mistakenly put in the same hour the same day. So stuff like that. And Aries is also a sign where you know how to go at it alone and maintain your own self-sufficiency. But yet it is important to be mindful of your relationships during this Mercury retrograde period. And since 7th house can mean one-to-one relationship on all levels, and 6th house can mean co-workers. So this really talks about relationship with your co-workers, and probably some confrontation may come forth as well. Pay attention to where your needs are not being met within your primary relationships while Mercury is still retrograding in Libra. Um, and you may need to rely on others more during this Mercury retrograde than normal. Or you may realize ways in which you have been too headstrong in insisting you know what's right. So just be careful not to spit out impulsive stuff. So Ian, what do you have for Taurus? Because this Mercury retrograde starts off in their sixth and re-enters into their fifth.
Yeah, guys, there's going to be like we're building up to Mercury retrograde, so there's going to be some repetition here going on, because you know, guys. Um, so for Taurus, it starts with the sixth, like it ends for the Aries. So everything that we start. Okay, I'll go at it again. Basically, fixing things and problems with work. A lot of routines. Maybe one routine isn't working. Now the second one you make it better. You know, even like an exercising routine. Maybe you're exercising too much. It's putting too much emphasis on your body. Now you have to go back and forth. Should I change this? Should I change that? Even the place where you work at, the office, maybe it's your desk, maybe it's, if you're self-employed, even that needs to be organized. That needs to be made better. And if you're working at an office, I've seen a lot of, let's say, moving around people, or even moving offices as well during Mercury retrograde. So lot of changes there. Second part of the retrograde will be focused on the fifth house for you guys. So it's a lot about lovers. It's a lot about romance, dating. You might go on a date. You might even go on a date multiple times to see an old lover again, to see if there's something doable there, or it's already done. Also, a lot about business and creative projects. It's also to do with the fifth house. So maybe you've been working behind the scenes, or maybe you need to now work behind the scenes to make a project that you want to publish out in the world a lot better. And you might see some mistakes. You might see something that needs tweaking, and that is the time to actually do it as well. And children, those of you who have children, something will be going on with them. Maybe they're going back to school. Maybe there's new clothes, new things needed, and you have to go and drive them all around these places where you maybe don't want to do it that much. It's just like, I'm making a joke, but like it's just like going back and forth. Maybe you go and buy some school clothes or something, or utilities for school or whatever, pencils, and you get back home and you're, oh, but we forgot the backpack. Now we need to go back to the store and buy the backpack or order the backpack. That it can be happening as well, guys, for Tauruses.
Ooh, what I have for you, Taurus, is that because sixth house can rule the workstation where you're sitting at work, and fifth house is creative arrangements. So you may actually reorganize your workstation to actually improve your productivity. And sixth house is also regarding your schedule. So your schedule can get a bit turned upside down, at least when Mercury retrograde is still happening in Libra. But knowing you, Taurus rising, there can be this, stubborn fixed sign tendencies. And so you may need to grant yourself a little bit more flexibility over this Mercury retrograde while Mercury is still retrograding in your whole sign sixth house. So more spaces around, more gaps around your everyday schedule or time, so that it can accommodate those potential small little delays that may come your way. And also use this chance to review your routines as well, sixth houses routines, and let go of any obligations, which is also sixth house stuff, that aren't serving you anymore. And I must say that retrogrades are also notorious for bringing exes out of the woodwork. And this really comes forth when Mercury swings back into Virgo, which is in your whole sign fifth house. But here I would say that for you, Taurus, stand your ground. If a ghost from your past does show up, begging for a second chance. And Taurus as well, there's the quality of steadiness, solidity, and consistency effort that you apply to your work. So when Mercury is still in your sixth house in a sign of Libra retrograding, it actually helps you in making grounded decisions, in bringing matters to completion effectively. But yet in the process, you've been facing a lot of pressure between your needs for innovation and your concern for enduring challenges and working hard to pass the test of adversity you have been facing. There's that fifth and sixth house energy, in which this Mercury retrograde passes back and forth for you. So let Mercury guide you in ways of adjusting your daily routine so that you may avoid burning out, and hopefully create more space for restorative relaxation, play, hobbies, and creative expression. So, Ian, how about for Gemini? Because this will start in their fifth house in Libra, then swing back to their fourth.
Oh, my dear Gemini. So, you know, we're talking about right now the beginning of that retrograde for you. Reinstalling those dating apps, I think, is pretty much what you will do. I can't. When I was writing this, I was like laughing so hard. But like, you know, sometimes I used to date long time ago, and you know, sometimes you get so frustrated with dating, and then you're annoyed and you're pissed off, and you delete the app. It's like no more of this shit. And right now, when it's happening in your fifth house, you might get an urge like, oh, I deleted this, you know, a while back, and now I'm reinstalling it to go on those curious meetings. But again, a lot of focus on, you know, ex-lovers returning, thinking about these people, children, self-expression, even like how am I expressing myself? What is the creative output I'm putting into the world, and like how am I doing it? What am I doing it for? You can go even back and forth between projects, like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that one, and you're kind of weighing your options. I do see, and even with lovers, I do see this, like maybe even multiple lovers are on your hands, and you're like, and this is like they do this and I do that, and you can be doing that during the first part. Now the second part for Geminis, it will be in your fourth house. So a lot of fourth house focus, which is family, which is the mother, which is the home in general, the home environment. So maybe you're moving furniture around. Maybe you're talking and communicating a lot with your family members. Maybe there's some important conversations that need to happen there, that now it's almost like there's something that needs to be fixed or organized better between you and your family, or mother. Usually mother, sometimes it can be the father. And some of you will just go back to your home as well. Maybe you visit them, maybe you go on a trip to your home place, or visit your family members, or just buy some new, or maybe, you know, I wouldn't, during the actual Mercury retrograde, I wouldn't recommend buying new furniture. If something, you know, kind of breaks in the home, you need to fix it. You know, fix as much as you can, usually during the Mercury retrograde. And then if you need to buy, let's say a chair makes a hole in the floor or in the wall, you know, fix the wall, obviously. But when you buy a new couch or a chair, whatever, usually it's better to do some research. You know, like go into some stores and see if there's a deal, or if you find something that is enjoyable for you. And then after the retrograde is done, usually the right things come to you, and put these in your home instead.
So for Geminis, I would say that old baggage from your dating life, because Mercury retrograde starts off in your fifth house, but old baggage from your family and home life will also come forth, because Mercury actually stations direct in your whole sign fourth house. So all this can be bubbling up to the surface now, Gemini, and this sludge of unearthed drama can really bog you down, because you like things that's, you know, lighthearted, and you like to like dart from, you know, A to Z and back to A and B. But just because you're not moving forward over this Mercury retrograde, because you are a Mercury root sign, this doesn't mean that you are not making progress, and you can use this Mercury retrograde as an opportunity to connect with the sparks from your past and handle your unfinished business so you can move forward with room for fresh inspiration. Also, for Gemini, your Quicksilver mind excels at multitasking and ricocheting between perspectives. Is that darting around energy? Continually finding new ways of synthesizing meaning and making flexible adjustments. Yet, you also make penetrating insights when you focus on one project at a time instead of dissipating your balance or brilliance, I would say, in many different directions. So utilize this Mercury retrograde's passage for brainstorming and experimenting with new forms of creative expression. You will need to turn inward, tending to the hearth at home, because Mercury goes back into your whole sign 4th house, and the new ideas that can be forged to bring back out into the world later when Mercury enters your 5th house eventually, when this Mercury retrograde ends. So, Ian, what do you have for Cancer? This Mercury retrograde starts in their 4th and re-enters their 3rd.
Now, guys, I just wanted to maybe say, like, overall, for these predictions, you can also listen to the sign that is before your sign, because there's going to be stuff there that is going to apply to you specifically. So there's a lot here for you to listen to. So for the Cancers, again, first part of the period focused on the 4th house. A lot of communication with the family, mother, home environment. Refurbishing, renovating the home, and I want to mention for the Cancers also, it's and Geminis as well. It's a lot about what do I need for my emotional safety, my emotional security. What can I improve? What can I do? You can again weigh your options. Obviously, what is important for me? What do I really need in my life? And some old things that you, let's say, made you feel safe can come back now, and for you to reevaluate if this is really the thing that is making me safe, making me feel safe, making me emotionally nourished and nurtured, or I need to let go of this and something new entirely, usually after the Mercury retrograde period, can come in its place. Now, the second part is in the 3rd house. Mercury does usually well in the 3rd house, but it's still a lot of communication, a lot of administrative tasks, a lot of fixing, spelling mistakes, a lot of fixing meetings, a lot of driving, a lot of small trips. You can maybe there's a work thing that you need to take a small trip for. It's in another city. You need to go there and do these things. A lot of messages coming your way. People, a lot of online messages, emails, everything you need to do there, and will require more of our efforts and work and skills as well. I need to mention skills with the 3rd house. You need to brush up on maybe some old skills and make them better, or something new that is more left brainy comes your way, and you need to spend, let's say it comes in during the shadow now, and then during the actual retrograde period you will be owning your skills, or literally perfecting your skills to make it better.
Interesting. I've actually put for Cancers over this Mercury retrograde that you're probably going to be lost in nostalgia, because 4th house can be anything that you cling on to, for attachment's sake, or like what Ian said, like some childhood memories. This also can be lumped under the 4th house. And for Cancer, their 3rd house can be something that they think about, some recurring thoughts from the past. As Mercury swings back into your 3rd house, it may bring along those stuff as well. So don't be surprised if you find yourself swimming down memory lane or revisiting past conversations with those who are close to you, those people in particular that you call family. Having said that, do your best not to let your head space get in the way of clear communication, because for Cancer, you can get quite emo at times. So make an effort to be straightforward with the people you live with and interact with on the daily, and that's that third house energy. And just take note of you having the tendency to display passive-aggressive behavior, because this will only make things more tense around you over this Mercury retrograde. And for Cancer as well, I would say that you've also been called to broaden your horizons through your work this year and embrace a more expansive vision pertaining to your vocation, because this is somewhat linked to what Ian said before regarding third house being your skill set. But yet Mercury retrograde in Libra will pull your attention to home and your inner landscape, sifting through emotional patterns in private spaces away from the hustle and bustle of external business, which is more of the third house energy. So once when Mercury actually shifts back into the sign of Virgo in the second half of this Mercury retrograde, you'll be able to retrieve important insight from your inward exploration to communicate through your work and express yourself better within the realm of relationships in general. So Ian, how about for Leo? It starts off in their third house, this Mercury retrograde, and goes back into their second.
Oh yes, guys, Leos, my dear Leos. But I wanted to say before we go into Leos, I wanted to say I really love what you said about Cancers being closet emos, or sorry, emos. For me, Cancers are literally closet emos, and why do I say that is because they're so sensitive and emotional internally, and they don't want anybody to see it, and that's why they're like super closet emos, like they're hiding their sensitivity, their emotional side. But Leos, for you, first and foremost, the first part of the retrograde is in the third house. So a lot about what we already said for the Cancers. You can go check that out. But lots of communication, lots of writing, lots of speaking. But one important thing about the third house is your thoughts. Now, and your ideas and the constant repetitive thoughts. A lot of ideas can return your way. Maybe some things that you thought a while back, now it presents itself again. Aha, now I can make it happen. And third is a lot about how you sell yourself, marketing, all of these sides that a Leo most often likes to do. He likes to present themselves in the center stage roles. You're going to be doing that, and you're going to be fixing, maybe even if you're publishing a blog post, doing a video, need to edit it many times. These types of things will happen for you. And the skills thing, I think, is important to remember from the Cancer part. Go listen to that as well. Second part of the period where Mercury goes into your second house, Virgo, finances, material foundations. Now it's increasingly important in the second house to really go, and when we're talking about Virgo, it's very important during this time to organize your finances, organize your material life. You're going to be transferring money from one account to another to make it better, or make it even from one currency to another. This can be very, very potent thing during this period. You're seeing, the euro is weakening. What should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? These are the topics for you. And items can, like second house Mercury retrograde, items can unfortunately break or need to be fixed. Material, physical items. Again, remember what I said earlier. It's better to do it research during the retrograde, after buy. Or if it's been something on your mind for a long time, then it's okay to buy as well. But if it's something entirely new that you want, now I suddenly want it, it's usually there's something there that is not quite clear. You might not even use that thing for a while, whatever object it is. But I give you one thing, guys, with this. Even if you don't do it, and let's say you buy it still during the retrograde and you don't use it, very often what I've seen is, like all of us, we make mistakes. Very often I see during the next retrograde, or maybe even the third retrograde coming after, it comes back to, and now the item is like, oh, I can use this. So it's not all bad. It's even if you do that. So just keep it in mind.
So for Leos, I've actually written for you that your social life might take a little bit of a hit over this retrograde period, and communication clashes and logistical errors can make it hard to pin down any set plans. And between the potential for confusing conversations, email snags, and money miscalculations because the second house involved, interacting with the world could feel like a bit of a headache for you over this Mercury retrograde. But that's why it's important to take it slow and steady instead of rushing through your to-do list or scrambling to catch up with correspondences. Take a deep breath and then just do one thing at a time. And I must say that for Leos, you've got natural gifts for leadership and staying centered within your purpose. But it's also important that you do not become stuck in overtly identifying with a persona or method that has brought you success in the past. So you may let this Mercury retrograde passage to excavate the connection between your communication and your values. You can make space to monitor ways in which your inner values and priorities have been changing, to discern if your communication is truly rooted in the present state of your authentic values. So in short, it's about realignment of that values to communicate more truly and aligned to your authentic self. So Ian, how about Virgo? Because this will start in their second house and eventually go back into their first house.
Yeah, guys. For you, Virgos, a lot of that material reorganizing, organizing will be happening in the first part of the period. Organizing finances, rebudgeting, but like even with the things and material possessions here, I think it's even like a little bit better because the Libra hesitancy or the back and forth will almost like stop you to buy anything during the retrograde. So it's a little bit easier to let's say keep your finances and money in check. Maybe when you need something really, you need to do it anyway. Second house is also about like worth, your worth on the marketplace or in the marketplace. So if you're in some sort of negotiations or contract negotiations, you might go back and forth here and there, like, oh, should I ask this much, should I ask this amount? That can be happening as well. Or like generally, what am I worth? Maybe you're a freelancer, maybe you have an hourly rate. Like, is this what I'm truly worth? Do I need more? Do I need less? Like, these are going to be happening definitely for you guys. The second part of the retrograde, now I do see you going quite deeply into yourself as well. It is because the first house Mercury retrograde, it is a reevaluating, looking at things like, am I on the right path? Am I moving in the right direction in life? Are the things working for me on my current path? And sometimes it can seem like almost like during the Mercury retrograde, like nothing is working. It's like, oh my god, like, oh, am I really doing this? These types of inquiries can come up. Like, obviously Virgo is quite a rounded sign, so I'm not super worried about, but like maybe if there's a little bit more emotional things in your chart as a Virgo, it can be quite a, maybe dramatic is too much of a word, but it still can emotionally affect you. It can seem like almost like things are too bleak in your life, or in where the path you're on in general. So ground yourself and ask these questions and see what you can make better and how you can move on after the retrograde, and what changes in your life you need to make actually.
I like what Ian said about Virgos, because they know it or not, they can be like directly or indirectly participating in this process, what I call stinking thinking. So, but for Virgos, since Mercury is your ruling planet and your ruling planet is going retrograde in your second house first and then going back to your first house, you may find that your keen eye for detail feels a little bit fuzzier than usual, especially during the second half of this retrograde back in Virgo. While you're usually great with logistics and looking into the details of stuff and scrutinizing, avoid making any major purchases now, as you may ultimately find out that things aren't what you think it should be. So instead, use this time to review your spending habits, where you're allocating your money and daily expenses, and assess what's worth investing in for the future. Maybe you want to like buy that thing, but it costs a lot and you need a structured saving plan in order to make that happen. This is one of those periods whereby, that windows open wide and big for you. And second house is also what's in your bank account. So this can be like your vocational income, what actually enters into your bank. And some of you may be contemplating jumping jobs and you want to ask for higher pay. And over this Mercury retrograde, particularly when you need to sign that new contract, perhaps that commands a higher pay, I would say do it when Mercury actually stations direct in your sign of Virgo. So that will be 2nd October onwards, preferably. And I would say that also let Mercury guide your discerning eye to examine how well your public presence and actions are aligned with your core or most essential values. You likely need to monitor financial matters, bringing critical thought to your investments and the balance between how much of your own resources are you sharing with others and how you are receiving them in return. Is that ROI worth it? Returns of investment, ROI. And it's also about, is that juice worth your squeeze? And if you're unsure of which way to navigate forward, just return to your center and ground within your integrity so that you may receive the inner guidance that's needed to propel yourself forward. So how about Libra, Ian? It starts off in their first house and goes back into their 12th.
So my fellow Libras, guys, I'm feeling you right now, personally. It's the first house, Mercury retrograde, even building up to it, it's been, this is from personal experience, obviously, it's a bit of a really intense reevaluating of what am I doing in life? Where is this going? Is this the right path? It's almost like it can be a little bit of overwhelm as well when it's in the first house. But luckily, Mercury does good in the first house. So these ideas, these thoughts can be running rampant. And then you can even... One of the big things for you guys, Libras, is it's like the weighing. You might have multiple paths. I should do this. I can do this. Oh, I even have this path open. And now you're like, oh, but this is like this. And when I go do that, this won't happen. And, you're weighing all of these paths. And this can get tiring, obviously, for you. But guys, give yourself a little time here. I would say Mercury retrograde is not about rushing things. Actually, contrary to maybe popular belief, I would say it's more about slowing down and taking a calm, peaceful look at what is actually happening, where am I going, what am I doing, what is the actual path I want to be pursuing. Now, the second part is a bit of a 12th house for you Libras. So let's say one of the big things here is researching something, working behind the scenes on some sort of either skills or making some writing project better, making some video project better. These are all possibilities. Communication behind the scenes with somebody. Maybe it's a deal you're doing. Maybe you need to do some behind the scenes negotiating with some powerful people. Who knows? You know, these are some of the potential there for you. Now the other part is with the 12th house. It's how are you resting? How am I resting? What am I doing actually to rest and recover and recharge? These are also things and items. And the 12th house Mercury tends to get very active during sleep as well. So this is what you need to. Yes, the good side of this is there can be communication during in dreams with, let's say, your guides, your helpers, your ancestors who have passed. The negative side is like when you step into the bedroom, you know, all of these ideas start to come that you need to do, that you need to fix, that you need to organize. Write these down immediately into your to-do app, to in your diary, in order to get better sleep. So yeah, that is something that you need to work on, unfortunately. Yeah, I guess Donnie, I would say, Donnie, I would say, is right in that saying. Like Libras don't have the easiest of Mercury retrogrades this time.
12th house can also be pillow talk as well. So maybe there's more conversation surrounding the pillow in the bedroom. I'll let you, take your imagination somewhere. So for Libras, I would say that with Mercury back spinning through your sign first, it may be difficult to express yourself and your opinions may feel like this fog is right over you. Maybe you're feeling more misunderstood than usual, or you may accidentally be stepping on other people's toes as well, without your knowledge. So I would say that it's best to avoid overthinking and quit worrying so much, because Libra, particularly as a rising sign, because Saturn, the planet, is exalted there, your insecurity shows to people more easily than other rising signs. And also, Libras can be worrying a lot about what other people think about you. So that can be overloading your psyche quite a bit. But having said that, being authentically yourself means not being everyone's cup of tea all the time. I think this is one of the biggest things that Libra, particularly risings, need to embody, and that's okay. Lean into your charming and diplomatic people skills to navigate touchy social situations with ease and grace. And I must say that the first 2 weeks of this Mercury retrograde passage is also serving as an opportune time for conducting a makeover in fundamental areas of your life. So you can take a step back from exciting relationship dynamics to return to your inner core and reflect on ways you need to adjust so that you are exerting your own needs and acting in your best interests. And once Mercury backtracks into your 12th house in the sign of Virgo, you'll be able to peel back a deeper layer of your psyche so that you become more aware of previously hidden aspects of your unconscious. And when Mercury swings back into your first house in Libra, you may take those hidden unconscious material that's shed light to you, hopefully to better conduct your relationships moving forward. So Ian, how about Scorpio? This starts in their 12th house and moves back into their 11th.
My dear Scorpios, for you, it starts again behind the scenes. I do see, because the 12th house is, let's say, it's to do with the in sheets or with sheets or between the sheets makings or dealings. For some of you Scorpios, some old lovers can return to have a, let's say, a final romp in the sheets or between the sheets. But a lot of, behind the scenes dealings, communicating with foreigners, even sending emails, sending messages with foreigners, behind the scenes research on and dealings with projects and fixing things there. Now, when it goes into your 11th house, like kind of like, I guess, Mercury in the 11th house and Mercury retrograde in the 11th house a little bit, at least a tiny bit. And some of these bigger projects that you've been working on, long-term projects, long-term goals, these might need now extra work, need extra effort, and you might even shift and change with these a little bit, like, oh, this isn't working, I need to go towards this. One big theme for you, Scorpios, is friends and social circles. Whenever Mercury is in retrograde, you're going to see things there. You're going to feel, mostly see and think about, sometimes feel things there in your friendships, in your social circles. Like, what is working here? More communication, yes. There, maybe even old friends returning to go, let's say, on a friend get together, whatever it is in your case. But it can be these people returning, and now you're going to see, okay, so this is why I ended this relationship, this is why I'm not so close to these people. Or you're going to see, oh, maybe I misjudged this person, maybe I need to jump in again. These are all possible for you. And these I want to say long-term projects, it's still, when you're putting in that effort, remember, usually you're putting in that effort in order, after the retrograde is done, for it to be published, for it to be taken out or put out into the open as well. So remember, when you're working and fixing these problems and you're frustrated, maybe you're doing it for a reason. Keep going. 11th house, I think, it's like slogan is like, keep moving forward, keep doing. Okay, for you guys, I guess it's okay for Scorpios.
Well, Scorpios, as a sensitive water sign, it's usually easy for you to connect with the ethereal wisdom of your higher self, normally. But during this particular Mercury retrograde, it may be a struggle to clearly interpret your intuition. And instead of rushing to conclusions, this is a sign to sit with your feelings and let them simmer, as clarity will come with time. And additionally, friendship drama may crop up over the final weeks of the Mercury retrograde as it goes back into the sign of Virgo. But if disagreements are brewing, it's okay to bow out and excuse yourself. I will also say that Mercury will guide you through hidden and dark places within your psyche. That's going back to the 12th house energy during the first 2 weeks of this Mercury passage. And as you embark upon an underworld journey of depth, death is also, what Scorpios are used to. You will become aware of patterns you have been engaging that may not have been in your best interests. This is about the self-undoing portion of the 12th house meaning. And once Mercury enters Virgo in the second half of this Mercury retrograde, you will emerge with clarity that will enable you to reformulate your aspirations, hopes, and dreams to be more aligned with your authenticity, as well as attract collaborators, which is the 11th house energy, who resonate with your purpose as well. So like-minded individuals. So how about Sagittarius, Ian? This starts off in their 11th and finish in their 10th.
Guys, Sagittarius, 11th house. Remember, 11th house is also your bonuses, or the salary you're getting if you're working a job, for example. Now, it might be that you get, let's say, notified that you might be up for a bonus or whatever in your case. So, but you need to work on it. So you might be even working, putting efforts in to get that. Maybe it's a sales number, maybe it's a number that you meet to, or quota, whatever it is that you need to meet during this retrograde to be eligible for that bonus. That is on the table for you guys as well. Some obviously long-term projects, new or not, I'll put it that way. Some older projects might return, and some opportunities through networks, those through social circles that you maybe I've kind of forgotten about. Maybe I'm kind of like somewhere back there. Now they can return, and now you can decide or go into maybe a little bit of a negotiation to understand if it's something for you to really work on. Is this my dream? Is this my goal? Should I go towards it? Maybe yes, maybe not. You get to decide. The second part, the Virgo part, will be spent in the 10th house. So a lot of work for you guys, because these houses are, I would say, quite intimately connected in a way, and you're going to be God, you're going to be working a lot, basically is what I'm saying. But like other things that you might be doing, like discussion with the boss, making some work project better again, even communicating with the people you're working with can be there. Lots of back and forth, lots of emails with the boss, lots of, maybe they're giving you things to do, maybe you're giving other people things to do. What else did I want to say about this? Yeah, details needing to be fixed with work projects. A lot of that going on for you, Sagittarius. So put in the work, guys. Really put in the work.
And for Sagittarius, this retrograde, Mercury retrograde that is rolling through the sectors of your chart that's related to social groups, and also career, because there's the 10th house involved. It means that maintaining solid communication is a big deal. It's also a good time to steer clear of any workplace-related gossips or friendship drama or clique-ish drama, and keep your lips zipped. Use temperance and patience when replying to work emails or group chats. Very important, because 11th house can rule group chats, as it will be too easy to overlook some important information and jump to an inaccurate conclusion. And of course, this also pertains to who to include in the CC list, blind carbon copy list, and who should you send the email to list. So all those will be challenges for you, Sagittarius. But then you know how to leap ahead when inspired by a fiery vision. Nonetheless, as a Sagittarius, particularly rising, but during this Mercury retrograde passage, it will be important for you to slow down and reconsider your aspirations and work in the world, what you want to be known or be famous for, professionally and vocationally. Are you focused upon targets truly aligned with a felt sense of soulfulness and authenticity? You'll also be on the lookout for allies. That's the 11th house energy, to join forces with who you are deeply aligned with your purpose, Sagittarius. You may also move away from some collaborations while gravitating towards others that have more mutual inspiration and accountability involved as well. So how about Capricorn? Ian, this starts off in their 10th and goes back into their 9th.
Yeah, guys, Capricorn, like, you guys make executive decisions. I would say in the best way to make them usually for you is through, going back and forth with somebody, by discussing things with somebody. And this retrograde really highlights this. Maybe it's a boss that you're going back and forth. Maybe it's a kind of like a workmate person at work that you're going back and forth to make some sort of executive decision, or you're just generally leaning on, let's say, guidance and consultation with somebody, again, multiple times, in order to make a best or the best decision moving forward, be it in career, work, social status, these types of outward mission type projects for you. And definitely a lot of, also, like, I would say, these mini personal relationships you have at work will be under the microscope as well. You're looking, okay, so this is what's not working with this person. Maybe I should do this. Maybe it's better if we discuss these things in another way. And then, communication errors there can come to play as well. Yeah, like I think we've been saying multiple times, be really aware of like who are you sending these messages to. Important. Um, so the second part for you guys is in the ninth house, which is again like the 10th house and ninth house are in a way a little bit similar because it touches two people. It also touches parents. Ninth house is specifically the father, mentors, teachers, and again the 10th house very often more in Western astrology is still one of the parents and bosses. So these kind of things are a little bit intermingled. So there's going to be a lot of communication there as well. But the ninth house is also about certification, schooling, all of these matters. So you might need to go into these matters. Maybe there's a you need to study a lot now. All of a sudden, going back to school, there's a lot to go over again, and yeah, travel I think is possible for you guys as well. Capricorn's ninth house, but you know there can be a little bit of nicks and knacks here and there with this Mercury retrograde if you're going to travel somewhere. Maybe there's delays. Maybe there's I think fortunately now the staffing of most companies is getting better. At least I know in Estonia it's getting better. Like there are more people at work again at the airport, for example. You know, there's been lots of problems traveling. You know, these airlines don't have people on staff, etc., etc. But some of these types of knickknacks can still come your way, Capricorns. You're going to have to deal with these. Reassessing your belief systems as well. What do I think? What do I believe about life itself?
I think for me, for Capricorn, with the retrograde raging through your professional life first, it's now a good time to hit pause on any new work endeavors and focus on reaccessing what's already on your plate. And this could be a good time to revisit any past projects or solve an old problem by adopting a new perspective or new belief system, like what Ian mentioned. However, be careful to dot your I's and cross your T's when it comes to any career moves, as you're more likely to run into misunderstandings or make mistakes that cause delays. And this can be pertaining to work-related interviews if you're planning to switch careers. And I've also put down here that for Capricorns in particular, over this Mercury retrograde, you may be more inclined to consult an astrologer for vocational profiling reading. I do provide that, and I'm sure Ian also provides that as well. So Capricorns have, one of the big, is one of the more prominent signs that will come forth pertaining to their purpose vocationally because of this Mercury retrograde. And I must mention that your capacity for persevering through challenges and enduring difficulties with resilience, although is admirable, but if you're not careful, your survival skills that sustain your engagement in your work may not be in your best interest. You're just slogging through without having that higher knowledge of things or the bigger picture of things. You may actually utilize this Mercury retrograde passage for reconsidering your vocational calling. And that's why I mentioned about potentially consulting an astrologer for a vocational related reading to see what actually, what you need in terms of your vocation to make you happy and still provide you with a considerable sustainable income. You may also reflect upon how well your job in the world is aligned with your authentic values as well. And once Mercury re-enters the sign of Virgo, let yourself broaden your horizons to consider expansive potential directions you previously have held back from taking seriously as viable options. So it's really pertaining to looking for the best way out if you're feeling unhappy regarding what you do for work. So Ian, how about Aquarius? This starts off in their ninth and goes back into their eighth.
Yeah, guys, Aquarius will definitely Hmm. I think you will go like almost like back and forth during the first part of the period of like, oh, what should I go learn this? Should I get this certification? Should I learn this course or take this course? Can be a little bit of back and forth there. But also definitely putting in a lot of efforts if you're already in a course or learning something to get that certification. Mentors, teachers, foreigners, father figure type people, lots of communications there, lots of news there, lots of messages there, and communicating with these people as well. And beliefs, I think it's important to mention this with ninth house, is like Aquarius is, I think, can be swayed by others in their beliefs, unfortunately, guys. And I think this is an important piece for you to also keep in mind during this Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde, it's always obviously a good period to go deep, to understand these things of big things of life and philosophy and these things. But, you know, am I taking on somebody else's? What is mine? What are actually my beliefs that I have for life itself? Yes, consulting these people is good. Obviously, it gives you another perspective. Don't let yourself be swayed or get too lost in other people's perspectives when you are, let's say, reevaluating and almost like redeveloping your new philosophy or how beliefs towards life. The second part happening in your eighth house. So, eighth house Mercury retrograde is, I would say, it's very good to, if let's say if you're like a business owner, or maybe if you're even in your personal life, like going through your taxes. How are you? Where is money going? How is money being spread with my partner? How is money being, where is money moving in my business? Working with bookkeepers. These details need to be worked on many times, unfortunately, but in the end, you might uncover something where money is kind of like, almost like bleeding out, or kind of like unnecessary places where it's going. So it's a good place to discover that. Maybe the harder part of the eighth house is obviously these traumas we had as children, and the Mercury retrograde sometimes does bring them up to the surface again, to be revisited, to be re-triggered, to be re-healed, actually, to heal another layer of. So you will do that as well. Unfortunately, it is, let's say, a more uncomfortable side of that. And like, even if you're doing your best to get resources from others, maybe investors money, or maybe a bank loan, maybe a bank money coming your way in order to do something. Remember, right now it can happen and you have to work on it later, but if you're doing it during the Mercury retrograde, please be aware that you might need to present extra documents, extra layers, extra proof of your capabilities that you can, service this money or service this debt, or do something with it. So something to keep in mind if you're in these areas, guys.
So what I have for Aquarius is that because this Mercury retrograde actually starts off in their ninth house of long distance traveling. So I've put in here that this Mercury retrograde, when it starts off initially in Libra, it can throw a wrench in your particularly overseas travel plans. So you may want to leave lots in your itinerary for potential delays. And if you're staying close to home, it's probably a good time to revisit previous interests or pursue some old passions of yours, whether it's an unfinished book from your bookshelf or some unfinished business with someone that you love, that you enmesh with. Enmeshment is 8th house. There's a lot to gain by looking at the past with a fresh new perspective. And also, Mercury's retrograde passage through Libra can be mentally stimulating for you to conduct penetrating research and explore new academic or philosophical directions, because ninth house can also rule adult education, Maybe you want that other bachelor's degree that you're looking to attain, and you may actually do some research for that. It's very good for that, Aquarius, particularly risings. And the more that you embrace the side of your nature willing to veer off into uncharted territory, which is the ninth house domain, the more likely you're able to retrieve insights from unexpected places and unorthodox perspectives that can fertilize new mental framework or frameworks for yourself. And once Mercury actually enters or re-enters Virgo via retrograde motion, you may become more interested in exploring your inner depths more, so you can be more intellectually productive. I just want to mention here that 8th and 9th house for Aquarius rising, since your ascendant and descendant is along the axis of Aquarius and Leo, I know a disproportionate number of Aquarius rising people, more than usual, that they are somewhat dating narcissists. Because the 7th house is in a sign of Leo, which is a sign of the narcissist. And this Mercury retrograde in their 8th and 9th house may actually bring about some kind of enlightenment and shed light in many ways regarding patterns of behavior that you've been not aware of. And just like what I said pertaining to Capricorn, they might be going to astrologers for vocational readings. For Aquarius rising, they'll be coming for relationship readings in order to have clarity. And Pisces as well, but we'll cover that a bit later. But Aquarius is really like, is the person that you're choosing to enmesh with, 8th house, really good for you? Or does that person only care about himself or herself? There'll be this kind of realizations that may come forth. It's a jagged little pill to swallow, not pleasant, but this is what this Mercury retrograde can shed light on. So how about for Pisces? It starts off in their 8th and goes back into their 7th. Ian?
Yeah, guys, your Pisces, my dear Pisces, always last, sometimes forgotten. It happens. I know how painful it might be, but you have other gifts. Let's start this Mercury retrograde with more of like the sexual side of the 8th house as well, because it is a sexual house, and Libra is more than one or two. So you could have some, let's say, older partners, lovers return to have these experiences in the sack, so to speak. And if you're already in a committed relationship, that can happen as well. And all of that, let's say, deeper side of sexuality, all jokes aside, that deeper side of sexuality will come to resurface as well, like intimacy and how am I really close to this person, and like how are we sharing intimacy. And a lot of Pisces, your intimacy, but this is more like a general guideline for you. A lot of your intimacy actually comes one-on-one as well with your partner, to discuss, to see their perspective too. And now it's a really good time to go deep into conversation, deep into sharing these deeper things with your partner, to take the intimacy level to a next level. But again, from a more practical point of view, all of these matters of taxes, insurance claims, inheritances, communicating with banks, getting investments or investors to invest in your businesses, for example, all of these things will be there as well. And your partner's resources will be under the microscope for you to figure these things out. The other side of Pisces, the retrograde is going into your 7th house, guys. So a lot about this retrograde period will be about relationships themselves. Yes, maybe the first part starts with more of these intimate things, more deeper things. But the other side of the relationship is practical matters. How are we showing up for each other? How are we communicating with each other? How are we talking with each other? These are all important topics to be discussed, and obviously some negotiations, deals, contracts that you're working on, that you're moving forth. But I think lots of focus on relationships in general for you guys. Use this time wisely, patiently, and allow yourself a little back and forth as well. That's okay.
I would say for Pisces, boundaries can feel quite blurry over this retrograde, and conversations can get pretty confusing as well. And this may make it hard for you to navigate the complicated relationships that are closest to your heart. And old wounds could get reopened, and sensitive memories could get triggered. And while this could create an opportunity for healing, it might also be a time to practice setting stronger boundaries and distancing yourself from situations that no longer feel aligned with your best interests. I would say follow your gut for the best results. And 8th house can also be investors. So for those who are doing business, particularly Pisces rising, you may be putting like the final refining touches to your business plan in order to attract those investors coming forth to you. And when Mercury stations direct from 2nd of October onwards, you may present those to your investors in order to get your moolah or money, from other people in order to move forward with your plans. During the first 2 weeks of the Mercury retrograde in Libra, Mercury will draw you into exploring previously hidden patterns within your psyche that may dredge up some uncomfortable and much needed revelations. And once Mercury re-enters Virgo in the second half of this retrograde season, the inner insight that you have gathered will inform ways in which you need to rebalance your relational dynamics with others. And it's a good time for taking stock of how much you are sharing within your partnership versus how much you are receiving in return. Is the juice worth the squeeze? It goes back to that sentence. And in your relationship, how's the ROI looking like, the return of investments? And Pisces is also one of those signs in which I find that on top of Aquarius, they'll be going to astrologers for some kind of enlightenment pertaining to their relationship dynamics. So Ian, do you have anything more to add before we close this out?
I think we went above and beyond with this Mercury
Right, okay.
retrograde.
So let's move on to the full moon coming up on 9th or 10th of September, depending where you are in the world. And this full moon will be at 17 degrees, 41 minutes of Pisces.
Yeah, guys. So there's a full moon there. And we have quite a lot here to dissect. First and foremost, let's talk about where is it happening, what is happening, what are the aspects, etc., etc. So it's happening, like Tony said, in the sign of Pisces, 17 degrees, 41 minutes, and we have a couple of very important influences near the actual lunation. Now, for me, let's say the most important ones, let's put them in that order, are the applying conjunction to our hidden Neptune here, and a separating conjunction to Juno, actually, which is interesting that we have these immediately here. We have also a sextile to Uranus in Taurus, square to Mars, sextile from Pluto. Less important in my opinion, in my humble opinion, sextile and trine with the nodes, and a wide opposition with Venus as well. We can consider this 11 degree one, but why I'm saying less and more important is because of the closeness. So whenever these things are, let's say, closer, or these influences are closer, it influences the lunation more. I think that the T-square with Mars, which is only 6 degrees apart, is, for example, much more important. But now that we know the influences, the way I like, if you know our show, I like to go into these kind of rapid fires. If you don't know, I go into these rapid fires where I go do, and I just shoot the bullet points for you guys. That what will be happening during this lunation, this full moon in Pisces. Let's start. Political unions made behind the scenes. In general, political dealings somewhere we can't see and then later presented. Big deals, big backroom deals made behind the scenes. Shady criminal activity behind the scenes again. Now, unfortunately, I do see some people becoming victim of some sort of criminal activity as well. A lot to do with Pisces becoming a victim as well. So, yeah, guys. I don't want to scare you too much when I say things like that. Very often you just read it in the news. If you're not dealing with it so straight in your face. But, like, say, from an emotional standpoint, feeling like the victim, it can be the case during this lunation, definitely. Now, what I want to say: forming partnerships, relationships, existing ones, either taking to another level or finishing up, endings and completions in relationships. I do see this month, guys, in general, when we're talking about lunations, when we're talking about Mercury retrograde, I do see a huge focus definitely on relationships, partnerships, deals, contracts, agreements. A huge focus on these matters. Import-export deals being discussed, made, partnerships formed to let's say, I think a big one is oil here. The thing we put in our cars. That is, the prices have been quite ballistic or crazy. I would even say these deals will be discussed, these deals will be made, these import-export matters will be, let's say, highlighted. Now, when we're talking about more on our emotional levels, we're talking about a lot about healing here as well, with Neptune and Juno, especially. Maybe healing more Neptune, but the nurturing side of Juno is definitely here to be healed as well. So emotional, spiritual healing is a big topic here, guys, and it won't be super comfortable because of another T-square. Luckily, the T-square is separating, so it's a little bit of a maybe not so harshly felt. Like, we're recording this literally during a new moon with an exact square from Mars, which is much more potent, I would say. But it will have its influence, and it will trigger us, and it will trigger our emotions, it will trigger our feelings, and then we must take action to heal these things as well. Now, from a spiritual point of view, this is quite a good full moon to be connected into other realms of existence, into other dimensions. Even meditations behind the scenes, these types of spiritual processes that you do are really good to do. Just be careful out there, but the veils are extremely thin, so I expect a lot of prophetic dreams, I expect a lot of visions, I expect these types of things to you guys and for us as well. Organizing yourself or pushed into action, at the same time feeling tired and at times powerless, like a victim. It's like a push and pull I see here, guys. Like wanting to rest and being pushed into action. Wanting to be behind the scenes, maybe resting. Again, something forces us to take and needing to take these actions that we need to take in our daily lives. Women especially feeling or being at first victimized through some actions from the outside and behind the scenes controlling forces, and then that will push women specifically into action and to come into their empowerment later. A lot of synchronicities, guys. Also, I forgot to mention this. Seeing similar numbers, numerology, all of these, getting messages from spirit in general. Keep your eyes, ears, feelings, intuition open to catch these. Get it in, ground it. Being pushed into letting go of something or dissolving of something, or even pushing yourself, like self-sabotaging yourself to let go of something. And this can be subconscious, guys, and it can come from verbal arguments. Mars from Gemini giving us that square, but in the end this has the potential of us finding liberation through, sometimes it is letting go of a partnership, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a contract agreement that we made somewhere behind years ago sometimes, and now letting it finally go, dissolving it. Secrets can come out that were done or let's say created or even through what's the word I'm looking for, through gossip, let's say, made out something that they weren't actually, can come out now, and now you're kind of like getting it and you're facing it. But like I think Donnie already mentioned it during the Mercury retrograde coverage, like you have a power still to not gossip, to not say bad things, to not say the things that you maybe 100% are not sure. So be careful with this throughout this month specifically. Even matters, even matters things done behind your back, even infidelity, unfortunately, can come out now, or even going towards and doing these, not recommended. Desire and wanting to escape because of some daily pressures directed towards you, going towards addictions, and also, guys, victimhood, poor me, going to somebody and say, oh, poor me, it's never me, I never get the break, I never get this or that. That is also an addiction, guys. But also alcohol, drugs, and porn, these are all good addictions, or not good addictions. These are the things that we go towards, unfortunately. But don't do it. But like this full moon specifically highlights these a lot. Very sensitive, I would say, during this full moon, like almost like the energetic boundaries can be dissolved. It's merging with the energies, merging with the other worlds, merging with the cosmos, that whatever, everything there is, so to speak. So the energetic boundaries, you need to pull yourself back into your bodies at times. Am I giving too much? Is my energy being used, misused, abused? Need to be aware of this. Initially being misled, manipulated, a veil pulled over us, but finding out after empowering ourselves later. I just want to make sure I got this. Being sensitive to other people's energies as well. So very often, everything you experience, and mostly if you're watching us, you most likely are a very sensitive person already. And specifically this full moon, it's almost like very hard to understand what is yours, what is mine. Am I picking it up from this space, this place, or someone else even? Very, very much can happen. People acting like they're out of their minds, or a little bit crazy, or even like see mental illness is, I think, highlighted here as well. Which very often, unfortunately, happens when the veils are thinner with other worlds, with the spiritual realms. And now the Mars square tells us that it will be, somebody can say something crazy, somebody say something mean, somebody can be agitated as well. So be on the lookout for that. So matters related to the V situation, the pox situation, hospitals, vaccines, travel, everything. I think I see matters getting the numbers getting higher here. Yeah, problems at hospitals, maybe not enough staff there, maybe not enough room there. Numbers going up anyway. Throughout this full moon, you can even feel like you're not in the body. You're floating almost somewhere else, some other dimension, and it's not really a super grounding full moon. So you have to have practice, and I'm going to give you some things that you can use in a second. I just want to mention results, because full moons are about results as well. So results in the areas of resting, behind the scenes work, travels, behind the scenes deals, secret deals, creative matters. One thing that I want to add about this full moon, it's a really good full moon to do creative stuff behind the scenes, to pursue some creative either project. Creative matters, obviously good for if you're a musician or this type of person, or a painter. But the creative energies, the creative juices can be flowing here, but you have to obviously you're a little bit maybe triggered into it anyway. So it's a little bit harder to use them, but they are here. Same goes with healing, and same goes with letting go of things that we kind of like know already that don't serve us, but they're still there, and it's sometimes their subconscious pattern. It's the potential to let go of these is very much here. I'll keep it at that. Results with healing, subconscious patterns coming out, illusions being shown to you. I think we're going to see a lot of news about criminals, jails, foreign lands. A lot of that will happen. We will get a lot of omens. Import, export, I already mentioned. I think that I got it. Now, what are some of the things that, let's say, you can ground yourself? Because we have supportive aspects here, guys. We have Uranus from Taurus giving us a nice sextile. We have some stuff here that will help us through this lunation. Even Pluto has a quite a wide but still a sextile to the moon as well. And I gave you some list now, and I'm going to give you some of the things you can do. So taking walks or hikes in your local neighborhood can ground the energy. Taking walks in nature, even spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, these are all good. Prefer most likely that you have a little bit more movement. Maybe if it's very standing, the aggressive energy of Mars can still be more agitative. Let's put it that way. Spiritual healing, energetic healer. If you have the means, you can see an energy healer or a practitioner to help you release these patterns that may be hidden. And our dear friend Donnie here is also an energetic healer, so good chances maybe here, guys. Visualizing, dreaming for a better future. These are good things to do also behind the scenes. Art, creative pursuits, writing, journaling, creating writing, outdoors photography, but be careful there. Obviously, if you're going too much into the mountains, for example. Resting behind the scenes, if you can do it, I think it's a really good one to use, obviously, but I'm a little afraid of that Mars square not allowing us that much of that, but at least a little bit you can do. Now, past life regressions is an interesting one. I've been personally looking for a past life regression, let's say therapist, because these are very, very specific things. But if you can find one that is good, the energy is good for this. If you know, I want to put this, if you know a really good one that you had good results with, let us know in the comments below. Would love to hear about that. Spas, spending time near water or oceans, also good. Like, even better if you can do it all together with somebody, because of the Juno influence. Juno is a lot to do with partnerships, contracts, all of these things. And obviously Neptune gives a desire here to be private. So there's a push and pull. One side, oh, I want to be with the partner. The other side is, oh, I want to be in private. You have to find a balance here, guys, and hopefully you can make it work. I wouldn't say this is the easiest of full moons, but there's a lot of potential here to let go, and to actively let go, guys. I think that's it for me for this specific full moon.
That's a lot to digest already. First and foremost, this full moon, which is the closest to the autumn equinox in the northern hemisphere, is known also as the full corn moon. It's also known as the harvest moon. It's also known as the barley moon. And this is when crops are gathered at the end of the summer season. Just want to put that out there. And on the backs of me mentioning that, if you notice that the asteroid of the agriculture, which is Ceres, is in a very hot sign of Leo. And Leo is a very hot searing sign that it can burn crops. And Ceres in this chart is squaring Uranus and the nodes, where Mars was in that triple conjunction in early August. So what this tells me is that the crop yield over this harvest moon is going to be, you know what I mean? And that's from a multiple reasons. One of them is that we've got a lot of like unpredictable weather pattern changes that's represented by that North Node and Uranus. And so we reap what we have. And so the crop yield this year will be pretty disastrous because of that Ceres squaring the nodes and Uranus. And that Uranus and North Node is linked back to the moon. So this full moon actually represents like a not so good yield year. I just want to bring ourselves back a little bit because the astrology of August has pushed us to that limits, particularly with that Aquarius super full moon we just had. But having said that, it showed us the type of intense pressure that we are capable of surviving. So when we zip forward to this September, this actually brings us a necessary moment of pause, I would call it, in the form of a Mercury retrograde, which we've covered in detail earlier, giving us permission to stop, catch our breath, look around, and proceed forward with some grace and dignity. It's a process though, I must say. This isn't to say that September isn't rife with pivots and also fluctuations. Actually, this month, September, I see even more fluctuations coming in, but it's not as gnarly as what August presented. So it's definitely not as overwhelming as past months as we move through from August to September. I just want to put that out there. And with this Pisces full moon on September 9th or 10th, depending where you are, this full moon actually heightens our emotions and intuitions while bringing the unexpected out to play with that tight sextile from the moon to the North Node and Uranus in Taurus. We can experience feelings of insecurity since the full moon in Pisces can really like exude or heighten the sensitivity aspect and our perceptiveness of our surroundings. And we may adopt that passive wait and see kind of methodology over this lunation. If you engage in creative or spiritual search though, you will benefit from great imagination, that this Pisces full moon embodies. Now back to that lunation point sextile to Uranus in Taurus, because that's the tightest aspect to the moon over this full moon cycle. It actually begs the question, what material reality do we want for our future on the backs of the global economic climate and state that's quickly evolving, as highlighted by August's Aquarius super full moon that we just had? We will be, in September, envisioning and searching for answers within ourselves, possibly pertaining to the following questions. How fulfilled are we, or are you? How much you can aspire to? You'll be asking yourself that. How much you can accomplish? How much money you will receive? And how much material resources will be at your disposal moving forward? And with these questions being posed to yourself, you'll be deciding on how to strategize your game plan coming up, to self-engineer that lifestyle that you envision after that self-questioning session, in order to be able to live more freely, independently, and follow your own unique path as a result. And some of us may actually change the nature of our employment to adopt a more hybrid method of being. Some of us maybe decide to have a complete changeover to be a freelancer from a 9-to-5 corporate job. That can also happen. Some of us may also have the desire for joint venture or endeavor and looking for like-minded individuals to join us on our quest. So an example of this can be like having your own sponsor. In terms of, for example, you want to have a Kickstarter project, you need backers. This full moon can be very good for putting the final touches to that sales pitch. Or you may start your own Kickstarter project or some other stuff, just comes to you and you want to put this out into the world. The ruler of this lunation is that Jupiter in courageous and adventurous Aries in retrograde, which is an opposition to that Mercury station retrograde position. So Mercury and Jupiter are essentially in opposition, and both are technically in retrograde. So it reminds us that what we resurrect over this full moon will be more than likely be something previous or forgotten inner conversations we had within ourselves, in which we are given that window or chance to manifest and have a greater opportunity to magnetically attract the necessary resources to us for things to happen. And if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling extra emotional, you may use this full moon in Pisces to indulge in preventative, self-soothing activities. This can be getting a massage, enjoying a long hot bath or shower. You may put in some fun, colorful bath bombs, bath salts. For some of you who want to be more adventurous, maybe a waterproof sex toy may come along as well. And that's because of that sextile of that moon to Uranus and Taurus, something electronic that you insert into your body, which may send your body into quivers. So something fun about that. And pay attention to your dreams as well over this lunation period, because Pisces energy actually brings out the psychic in all of us. So in terms of the mundane, plausible manifestations, I've actually looked at the ACG map or astrocartography map, and this lunation point on top of that, Juno, Neptune, and Jupiter, they are all anti-culminating, which means they're very close to the fourth house cusp over Ukraine and Moscow. And on top of that, this lunation point at 17 Pisces is in the fourth house of Putin's chart of homeland. And this lunation point at 17 Pisces is also tightly in conjunct to quincunx, his Saturn in Libra in the 12th house, and also tightly trine his Uranus in his 9th house in the sign of Cancer. What this actually tells me is that Russia is suffering a setback as they are no longer able to bully Europe. By the way, Europe has got that Saturn still in Aquarius, and Vesta, which is not plotted in here, culminating over that region. So what this tells me is that perhaps because Pisces rules gas, particularly natural gas, and true enough, most of the EU countries have been, I think since May of this year, they've been stockpiling gas as a natural gas. And I've looked into the news, and most of the countries by now, they have reached above 75% for the first time in terms of natural gas storage for them to tie by for this winter. So what this tells me is that at least in the next coming few months, all the way till hell freezes over for Europe this winter, that at least they've got enough natural gas storage. And they are that one step closer to prevent themselves from being reliant from Russia for natural gas. And on another note, that Uranus in Taurus, together with the North Node, is also culminating over Bangladesh as well, with the lunation point, which is that 17-degree Pisces point, conjunct the country's moon in their 3rd house, and also sextile the country's Uranus as well in Taurus in their 5th house. What this tells me is that for the country of Bangladesh over this lunation period, that it talks about the unfolding story of that country facing collapse and needing, from what I investigated, needing 6.5 billion of debt bailout from depleted foreign currency reserves stemming from recent resource price hikes. And they are asking places like the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and also the ADB, or Asian Development Bank, for loan requests. And when I look slightly deeper into the country, they are dependent heavily on labor-intensive manufacturing for the majority of their GDP. So they have to import large amounts of fuel and food, something in which both are not playing into their favor. So look out for news coming out of Bangladesh over this Pisces full moon period. And that's all I have for this full moon. Let's move on to the new moon, happening on 25th to 26th of September, depending where you are in the world. And this new moon in Libra will be right at the beginning of Libra at 2 degrees. And I would say that the tightest main aspect of this lunation is that opposition to Jupiter in Aries, still in retrograde, that is. So anything that's retrograde aspecting a lunation point is something regarding the rehashing or revisiting of previously signed or approved legislation, law, or court decision. Since this is an opposition, it means that there's a potential to challenge something what has been decided in the past. And I've looked into some charts. What's really interesting is that I looked into the birth chart of Roe v. Wade, and the natal sun in the Roe v. Wade chart is at 2 degrees of Aquarius, exactly trying the lunation point at 2 degrees Libra. So the sun in the Roe v. Wade chart is in the direct line of fire, with that Jupiter retrograde on the other side in Aries, forming a sextile. So what this tells me is that this can be a continuation in the unfoldment of the story of the Supreme Court decision. And also, this lunation point opposite Jupiter retrograde in Aries is activating the Sun-Moon midpoint of Johnny Depp and the cardinal T-square of AH, aka the ex-wife. I refuse to pronounce her full name for obvious reasons. And this activates her cardinal perjury suggesting T-square in her natal chart. So what this tells me is that something concerning the appeal, because the decision has been made back in June. Me and Ian have covered that. Now is the appeal courts stuff that they are moving forward with. So something will develop pertaining to that. And also further investigation on possible further charges relating to perjury on the part of AH, something will be revealed or something will be seeded, because this is a new moon. But however, it's opposing Jupiter, so things will somehow get a bit blown out of proportion. Not to mention that I've also looked into Facebook's chart as well. And they've got natal moon in early Taurus, natal Uranus in early Aries, and they've got natal North Node in early Sagittarius. All these 3 points in Facebook's natal chart are activated with that lunation point opposite Jupiter retrograde in Aries. And not to mention that I've looked into Mark Zuckerberg's chart, and Mark Zuckerberg's natal Neptune is being highlighted as well, because it's in the early degrees of a sign in his natal. What this tells me is that Facebook's risk of being forced to shut down in service in Europe as a result of the latest twist in a long-running data protection compliance saga that relates to a clash between EU privacy and the US surveillance law may well be rehashed over this new moon in Libra. I also want to add that this particular lunation will be important in the sense that 18 months after this new moon in Libra, there will be an annular lunar eclipse also in early Libra coming forth. So what I'm trying to say is that if you've got any early degree cardinal planets in your chart that's activated by this lunation in late September, count in successions of 9 months, because there'll be this story that will be unfolding, and the main full bloom of the story will come at around 25th of March of 2024. This will be when this new moon becomes a lunar eclipse eventually. So going back to this new moon in Libra, if ever there is a period to be positive about yourself and follow your heart, I would say that it's over this new moon. And this new moon in Libra is also a time to focus on family, emotions, and your inner child as well, represented by the opposition to Jupiter retrograde in Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which represents the baby. And on another level, it can represent our inner child as well. And I would say that this new moon provides the best time to reflect on what you want to change, what you want to bring in terms of new energies into your life. And the sign of Libra is the sign that embraces the astral moment. So what it tells me is that this new moon in Libra offers realistic perspectives on what needs to be analyzed, organized, sorted, detailed, and ordered in a new way in our lives. And I would say that the cardinal signs won't be the most impacted, surprisingly. Actually, over this new moon in Libra, the mutable signs, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, will be the most triggered. And this is because of the ruler of this lunation, which is Venus, in the mutable earth sign of Virgo, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto. What else can I think these are the main aspects that jumps out at me. And this is on top of the full moon that we discussed, that full moon in Pisces earlier. So the mutable signs actually in the month of September is going to be the most triggered by both lunations. And this new moon in Libra, back to this, will highlight family, home, and nurturing. It's an excellent time to work on family goals, foster a closer connection with loved ones. Are you looking to start a family? Maybe this is a time to try and conceive. Perhaps you're also looking to reconcile with some siblings and relatives. This new moon can also help with that as well, to revisit past issues because of that lunation point opposing Jupiter in retrograde. It's also a good time to focus on emotions, because this new moon in Libra will help you be more conscious and sensitive to others. And it's a great time to develop more empathy, recognizing and working with your emotional intelligence. Something Libra that's very good at is also favored at this time. Begin to trust those gut instincts and hints you get, even if they don't seem logical at first. And they're stemming from Mercury retrograde conjuncting the ruler of the lunation. Learn to value your intuition and appreciate all the subtle nuances that you pick up. Practice these skills over this new moon in Libra. And by the subsequent full moon that we'll experience in October, you will probably have a firmer grip on the gift of your emotional intelligence as a result. Another theme that I picked up is that embracing your inner child comes forth with this lunation, because you're likely to encounter some feelings of nostalgia or perhaps a longing for the freedom, simplicity, and security of your younger days. And this is coming from Mercury retrograde conjuncting the ruler of this new moon lunation point, which is Venus. And the energy of Virgo and Libra in this lunation phase really creates like a feminine, nurturing, and mothering energy. That's what I get. And taking time to acknowledge and care for your inner needs will be highlighted over this full moon as well. And it's really a great time to get back in touch with your inner child. If you've been just purely been stressed out by external circumstances, because this year has been a roller coaster ride for most, if not all. And mother your inner child of yours. In short, that's what I want to present, and devote some time and attention to pleasurable activities. Libra loves the ease and grace of floating. It's an air sign, and get out and play if you need to, because the energy of this new moon facilitates that. So whether that means enjoying a hobby, taking a day off from work, going to the beach, and just sleeping in, is the time to do so as well. And it not only applies to this new moon, but it's also a time to make it a regular part of your life. So make consistent play dates with your inner child. That's what I want to impart. And so family, emotions, and your inner child are very much highlighted here. Embrace your feelings and share them, because Libra is a very projective sharing sign and a very social sign as well. So I did write down some kind of affirmations if you want to do that over this new moon in Libra coming up. One of them can be, I own the ability to outline my reality. My heart is open to receiving all the love from the universe. I read to receive all forms of abundance into my existence. And lastly, I have faith that I'm entirely backed by the universe. So you may repeat such affirmations over this new moon in Libra, and this may actually help you to tap into the energy quite a bit. So in terms of the astrocartography or ACG map, what's really interesting is that the lunation point and the ruler, which is Venus, together with Mercury retrograde, they are all anti-culminating, which means they are very close to the fourth house cusp. And we've got Jupiter, Neptune, Chiron, and Saturn all culminating at the same time over Ukraine and Russia again. And this actually extends out into Western Europe. And this lunation point in early Libra is trining Putin's ninth house and Uranus ruler, which is Moon in Gemini, in his eighth house. And on top of that, there's further some activations as well. This really talks about the month of September, reiterating the alignment between most EU countries in stockpiling natural gas for ease and political stability, which is Libra, over the upcoming winter season, trying to decouple from the reliance of natural gas and associated bullying from Russia. So this comes forth. And as my last main point, this lunation point, together with Mercury retrograde and Venus, they're all culminating in the sky, which means it's very close to the 10th house cusp, with Jupiter, Chiron, and Neptune all anti-culminating, which means it's very close to the 4th house cusp, over the state of Alaska in the US. What's really interesting is that there's recently some news coming out of there pointing to environmental groups challenging on the adequacy of review for Alaska oil project. And they are actually launching a lawsuit. Lawsuit is very much a Libra thing. When it's opposing Jupiter, even more so. So lawsuits can be thrown around over this new moon in Libra. That's one of the possibilities. Because that new moon lunation point opposing Jupiter retrograde in Aries means that fairness and justification of a course of action that's approved earlier will be openly challenged via legal means. And the lunation's ruler, which is Venus, in late Virgo, conjunct Mercury retrograde, as both aspecting Neptune via opposition, really points to issues regarding oil and gas exploration projects, by the way, because Neptune rules oil, particularly also natural gas as well. On top of that, Venus and Mercury retrograde are also both tightly sextile. It's not plotted here, but we've got the asteroid Hygeia at around 25, 26 degrees of Scorpio as well. So it's a tight sextile. And this really talks about group concerns on the impacts of such projects on the environment. And by the way, this project was prior approved by the Biden administration. So this lunation that's opposing Jupiter in the state of retrograde talks about something that has been signed earlier, that's been approved earlier. But now a lawsuit is being thrown in the process to challenge it. So that's all I have for this new moon in Libra. Do you have anything more to add, Ian, before we close this month's energies out?
I have a few, like, let's say, bullet points or kind of like things to do, and more on the, let's say, emotional side of people. I'm going to go my just rapid fire style. Again, we have a lunation, emphasis on relationships, partnerships, contracts. So this is one of the reasons why I've been focusing on it so much. So, but what does it mean, guys, for this lunation? Donnie said already about the Jupiter opposition, and whenever Moon and Jupiter are opposite each other, there is a tendency to be, I would say, overly emotionally overflowing even. And I think this lunation really highlights it. So whenever you are emotionally overflowing, or you're, let's say, even pleasing too much during this lunation, and I think a big part of this lunation is finding a balance between your independence and giving to the other. And I think this is what we'll be dancing with. What do I give to others and what is mine? How can I balance this? And remember guys, Libra is a big sign that likes to go to extreme or towards extremes, and now Jupiter is expanding that quality here even more from Aries, from the sign of individuality, of ambition, me, number one, you know, and the lunation is at the other side of the coin of the extreme, which is the other. So huge balancing effort, guys, for us with this lunation. And remember, with new moons, it's always before the new moon, usually some sort of problem, something has to leave, something almost, sometimes it can feel like it's taken away from us, but it's almost like it has to leave. And this time, you know, I think it can be again with an agreement, with a relationship, with a partner. And we're reevaluating and going into these spaces with the Mercury retrograde anyway. So guys, this is the time to start making these decisions as well after this new moon. Shall I go with it? Shall I, you know, a new beginning is a new moon. Shall we take this partnership that we have and take it to another level, or we cut it off and start anew somewhere else? A lot of that will be going on. Yeah, so a push and pull between your personal needs and wants and the needs and requirements of partners and other people. Being overly optimistic about relationships, partnerships, can be personal or business, or even what politicians or public figures are saying. I would be really freaking careful here with this opposition of what they are saying. But agreements made, documents signed, negotiations begin anew. Yes, like I think, like Donnie said, some things can be rehashed here. A new beginning in there. Like one of the things I do see here is the Sweden, Finland, Turkey thing, because that has been a weird one, guys. Personally, for me to observe, I haven't been like 100% on it constantly, but we're still in the, let's say, promise of Sweden and Finland, you know, made to Turkey to give out these people. They haven't done it, and this is in a flux. This weird flux that we're seeing, and this is, I think, a time where, you know, both these lunations actually talk about this a little bit. So we should see at least some rediscussion, new meetings, new contract signs, new agreements signed. So I don't know if I hope, but let's see what happens there. So from a personal level, I think one of the biggest challenges here as well is to find a compromise, and almost not to compromise too much with your own needs and the needs of others. I think that's a huge thing that we need to do here. I also put down here having to face, because remember, Libra is the sign of karma. Having to face, in my mind, it's hugely, we can obviously add Capricorn there because of Saturn, but Saturn is exalted in freaking Libra. So guys, Libra has a lot to do with what you do unto others will be done to you. And I think this is, especially with the new moon, something will be revealed to us, something will be shown to us. Is it balanced? Is it not balanced? And are you doing unto others what you should be doing? Are they doing unto you what they should be doing? Huge place here. Emotions can be overflowing, and a lack of emotional boundaries as well here, guys. Some things I wrote down that can be, you know, good to do, good to observe, good to remember, and, you know, because it's a month away, you know, we need to maybe come back to it as well. So finding the balance between others and you, having to find the balance between your selfish desires and pleasing others. Like, we can literally go during this new moon into these extremes, literally. So keep an eye on that. Understanding, but not going into and taking other people's perspectives as your own. Remember to differentiate these. Very, very, if not crucially important. I would say almost like the entire month that is important, but especially during this new moon. And remember, balance in everything. A tendency to go towards extremes during this new moon, guys. Hope you find a balance, basically, between your own needs and desires and the other people's needs and desires. I think that's it for me.
So I would say this month, the mutable signs, if you got planets in the mutable signs, I think you'll be the most triggered out of the three modalities as compared to cardinal and fixed. So the fixed signs can catch a breather, because I know you guys have been going through the rough time with that Saturn-Uranus square in fixed signs. But I think this month is really the mutable signs that will feel the most. But then mutable signs is also talking about how do we pivot from what to transition from one phase to another. So most of us might be making a whole bunch of important decisions and try to orientate ourselves to swerve ourselves towards that place we want to be. So Ian, do you have anything more to add before we close this out?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. First and foremost, the impression I did at the beginning of the video, that was Walter Mercado. If there was somebody.
There you go.
If there was somebody who didn't get it. But guys, what do I wish for us, or kind of my parting words? I do hope for us that we manage to find balance. I think balance is key here, because the tendency to go towards extremes will be there. The desire to escape will be there. To desire to be almost illusioned about things that are going on might be there. So I wish you, let's say, a balanced seeing of clarity through these misty illusions, and seeing both sides of the story, right. And then doing your best to find the golden road in the middle, which is most often the best one to take.
Yeah. So on the backs of August, I'm sure all of us are better and bruised and a bit tired. But then I would say that September is not as intense. It's one of those months whereby there's almost like a simmering in the background, but it doesn't kind of swerve us, knock us up, down, left, and right. October will be a different story, because we've got Pluto and Saturn turning direct, while Mars is going retrograde. So it's another kind of more intense month. So as much as you can, take this September with more ease and grace, like what that Libra full moon tells us. So if you need to take that time out, please do.
Yeah, I mean, considering every other month, I mean, I guess it's okay, but it's still 2022, guys. So
right.
hold on to your hats for the eclipses and coming in as well during October, November, and no way out but through, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, what can we say? Like, we hate to be like a broken record, but some things just need to be mentioned here. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Not exactly the eye of the storm, but at least this month you can take a breather if you wanna, to kind of recuperate from August.
And prepare yourself for the culmination of the year.
So, okay, Walter.
Walter and Donnie are finishing up here, I think. Yeah, guys. Appreciate
So take
you.
care. Yeah.
Like, share, subscribe the video, all that's good stuff as well.
Yeah.
And see you again. See you again soon in the next video.
Ciao.
Ciao.